G'day, I'm Hugh Bowman. Today I want to talk about qualifying customers, because if you get this right, it saves you an enormous amount of time. And I've got an example that I want to share with you because this will help me explain it so that we can all learn from it. Because I've got this beautiful client who found herself through a chain of events driving an hour and a half to go and see a dairy farmer in this case. And they were so early in their buying process that she was clearly not going to make a sale and was wasting her time. And she was pretty grumpy about it, wasted half a day. And so this is where we need to get our qualifying much better to avoid this sort of time wastage. And so the guts of it is that we've got to, what I call, ask better questions. Now, this usually comes, might become via email or via phone. Usually you want to convert it into a phone call straight away, but the better questions you ask helps uncover your level of quality of lead and interest, and that's what you want to get to. So asking better questions, what do I mean by that? So you've got to really get into the problem. So what's the real problem? So in this case, it was like cattle yards were really muddy, ankle deep in cow poo and really messy. And so that was the problem. But then you sort of have to go, well, what's the impact of that? And it might be that, it's hard to walk through, it's hard to get staff to work for you. It might be just too much mud or bugs in the milk, and the milk processor is telling you, as a dairy farmer, you've got to clean it up, otherwise we're not going to take your milk. So that impact is pretty important, it's crucial, in fact. And so problem, impact, understand the time frame, so in this case it might be immediately, but or given the seasons, we're sort of winter time now, it's got to be sorted out for next season in this case. So these are the sorts of questions you ask. And I guess the killer one is always, does the prospect have a budget in mind? And this is a great indicator in itself, because if they say, I've got no idea how much it costs, and they go, well, okay, so how about an example? Like, here's another application where, 400 herd dairy, and here was their feed pad, and this is what we put in, and it costs between this range and this range. And so you can probably get a range to them so they're not entirely shocked. And if they say, oh yeah, that's fine by me. So what we're really trying to do here is work out the quality of the lead. Quality of lead in terms of, how big a problem is it, and how big is the impact to that customer in their eyes, and what sort of time frame do they worry about, and so there's the quality, but also your interest. For example, if it's a long way away, this job, you might say, oh, I'm not so interested. It might be that they had no idea of budget. You might say, well, they're not particularly interested. If they had a budget or a range that are quite acceptable with, and say, oh yeah, bang on, it'll cost about that probably, but we'll come out and do a proper design for you. Their quality is starting to go up, right? So, and of course, interest could also be, your level of interest could also be how much work you've got on your plate. So in this case, they've got inundated with leads and all the time, and everyone says they want some flood wash system maybe, and so unless people are tripping over themselves and saying, oh, we'll just go ahead straight away, or how do we pay now, they're only going to go to so far to their level of interest is only so high. So the higher the level of interest, or the more serious they are about buying it, that's what we're trying to establish. So how do you might ask these sort of questions. In this case, this lady, she thought the quality was okay, and she thought the interest was reasonably high too. So what other hurdles can we put in place to raise the level of interest, or what's the hurdle to make sure that they're a higher quality lead? And these are things that I do and recommend. So what other ideas do we have? Well, let's put it as ideas, and it depends on the business. So there's one that I do as well. So we have a questionnaire, righto? So you could send them an email or a questionnaire and say, why don't you give me more information? How about a site layout, a survey plan, or some photos, or an example of other ones that you're interested in that you've seen round about, or with a colleague or something like that. So questionnaire means that they have to provide you some information. They have to get out of their chair and buy into the process. And this also helps you because then you understand all about their job or their project or their farm and what it looks like. And so questionnaire is a really good thing. Now, the next one is that, I'd like to, I like this one too, invite to office or, showroom or whatever it is. And, the obvious thing is there that you're not driving anywhere, so great, you're not spending the 3 hours driving to get there. And so they're coming to you, and so they are already buying into it, and the benefit, you've got to sell it, of course, but the benefit is that you can go, well, why don't you come to our showroom and we can give you some more info. We can show you some great photos, we can show you talk you through it, we can present to you some other jobs we've done, and and you could also show, in this case, they make products and troughs and valves and a whole lot of other things. You go, well, why don't we take you to the, we can show you some other services, or we could introduce you to the chief engineer, or and see our operation, and so you can show how serious you are as a business and how ideal you are to work for them. So they've got to come to you. So again, they've got to put more buy into that. And the other idea is that I call it you can dress it up how you like, but a paid visit. Obviously you've got to invoice them for going to site. Now you can dress up a paid visit, as a consulting fee or a design fee or a site inspection. You could call it whatever you like, and you do have to give some sort of value as well. You have to say, oh, we'll come to site and we'll go away with it. We'll give you some good ideas. We'll write up a report for you. We'll draw a plan for you or something. But paid site visit, they're opening their wallet, much more likely, the level of interest is much higher. So when you get an inquiry, ask some great questions, get a bit of emotion in here, what's the impact? Find out budget, and then questionnaire, invite to office. You can do one of these or all of them. All are fantastic. So if you're in the game of B2B business and bigger jobs, and we're talking like 20, 50 grand sort of plus sort of jobs, these things are worth gold. All right, if you want to know how to put these into play or design a questionnaire or come up with an offering that could satisfy as a paid visit, reach out. I'm sure I can help you out.